Welcome to the very first episode of Transmissions of the Higher Self. And what I'm going to be talking about in this very first episode is going into the higher self and talking about the mechanism of incarnation. Now, through this interaction, the higher self and I are integrated together as one. This is not a channeling state. So when I basically just go into myself and surrender, and that integration of the higher self is there. And so I hope you enjoy this transmission, as the higher self will be speaking about mechanism of incarnation. We want to implore you to understand the entire nature of the game that represents the idea of what is termed as incarnation. It is not, through what many have suggested, that God just wants to know him or herself. It is not the idea of the infinite being finite. It is none of those things. That when you are incarnated, the condensing of your consciousness, being brought together in a physical form, is to show you the infinite within that form. It is to show you God within that form. It is to show you the supreme nature of your true being in that form. Even though that form has physical senses, has a physical body, has a physical operating system, bodily systems, everything that completely dignifies that physical mechanism of incarnation. It is still God. There is no true limitation other than one's own beliefs relating to who they really are. The body itself is but an instrument, condensed through the infinite, housing the infinite, being the infinite. There is nothing finite that represents the divine infinite intelligence that abides within this form. For it is the infinite within this form. And when you look at the nature of the physical body, and you see its intricacies, you see the vastness and sophistication relating to your DNA, relating to your bodily structure, about how intricate this is. This is not something that represents a finite intelligence inside a finite-based body. No, this is infinite intelligence that has condensed a physicalized, finite form. But it is still infinite intelligence. The supreme intelligence never loses its intelligence. That which is infinite never loses its infiniteness. So when you look at the mechanism of incarnation, and you may ask the question, well, why did I choose to come into such a body? Because to me, it feels like this physical body is dense, it is solid, it does feel limited. I have all of these feelings and emotions and thoughts, and I wander through the planet Earth in this body, trying to discover who I am, So how can it be said that infinite intelligence houses this body? Well, it's quite simple. It does. And every perspective that you look at comes not from the infinite intelligence, but from one's own separate self-illusion. The idea of separate self-consciousness that reigns supreme within the body, that reigns supreme throughout the mind, because you have convinced yourself through programming, through conditioning, through hypnosis, that you are a finite being, because you understand everything relating to stimulus through your surroundings, through your environment. And as long as you continue to see yourself that way, through the programming, the condition, the trance-based hypnosis, you are going to feel like all that you are is just a finite being. But that is not what I am saying to you. What I am saying to you is that you are infinite intelligence, that you are the supreme consciousness, that you are God, that you are the self. You see, again, the infinite does not just cease being infinite. Because it has condensed itself into this degree of form, it does not make it finite. The body will have finiteness to a degree, but you will not. The mind has finiteness to a degree with its thoughts and its feelings and its emotions and sensations, but you do not. It is not about seeing yourself through the confines of the body and the mind. For when you know yourself to be the infinite, now you understand all mechanisms that exist throughout the mind. The mind itself is not a construct that God uses to try and understand God. There is nothing of that need. How can the infinite try to understand itself? The infinite is already infinite. The infinite is all-knowing. So as it's all-knowing, why would it need the mind to know itself? It doesn't. You have to understand that the mind is simply an externality. It is an externality of awareness. It is an externality of consciousness. That when you externalize it, because you decide to live in a realm of thought, well, the mind becomes extroverted. As long as you are holding on to mind through the mechanism of a body, through the mechanism of incarnation, you will only see your outer world unfolded. It's an unfoldment of your own consciousness, where you have thoughts and feelings and emotions and sensations and tendencies and behaviors and characteristics, all of these things that make up the mind-based construct. So what you have done is you have folded consciousness outwards to where mind itself exists through the nature of thought, feelings, emotions, sensations, tendencies, behaviors, because that is, again, what you have decided. You have to understand that you are the supreme, that you are God, that you are infinite intelligence. And as infinite intelligence, you can do anything that you wish. It's really nothing more than you having a game with yourself, where you are pretending to be a limited being, where you are pretending to be incarnated here in this condensed form, this blanket of consciousness, where you see yourself as this physical body, and you exist here on this physical world, and you have convinced yourself that you are limitation, that you are a separate being, and that you walk through the world constantly asking yourself the question, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And no matter how much you continue to look from the outside, nothing answers that question. For it cannot be answered from the outside. But you ask yourself, well, what is it that I really want? What is it that really, really defines who I feel I am? What is it that I feel I am altogether? And for you to know that requires for you to go inside. And when you go inside, you realize the answer to your question. It's love. It's happiness. It's joy. It's bliss. That is what I want. But again, you constantly go low here and low there, to and fro throughout the world, thinking that objects, people, places, events, and things are the very epitome of this happiness, love, bliss, and joy. But they are not. Why are they not? Because they are finite. Because they are temporary. Because they are impermanent. And that which is temporary, that which is impermanent, can never function as that which can be permanent. Even though all of those objects house infinite intelligence, you connect with the idea of the object. You look at the surface rather than the heart. Which means every person, every place, every event, everything has a heart. Every single thing does. Because it's all consciousness. It is the blanket of consciousness. And when you go through the mechanism of incarnation, it's all a game. It's you pretending that you are a limited being. It's you imagining yourself to be a limited being. It's you dreaming yourself to be a limited being. But you're not a limited being, because there really is nothing pertaining to finiteness. You have only extroverted and externalized the mind, based upon your tendency to do so, based upon the dream, that you have entered the dream of incarnation. And as long as you have entered that dream, you have entered that grid relating to incarnation, you see everything external to you, but that's all part of the game. It's like a player that creates a character in a game. They have all of these qualities. They have all these behaviors and characteristics. They have this much strength, or they have this much knowledge, they have this much wisdom, they have this much stamina, and so forth. And they go to and fro throughout the world, trying to figure out who they feel they are. But who's behind the character? It's the player. And in this context, the player is infinite intelligence. It's you. You have always been infinite intelligence. You have always been supreme consciousness. You have always been God. You have always been the Mother, Father, Creator. You have always been the creative force. You have always been the unmanifest. That's who and what you really are. But you don't see that, because you are again continuing to gaze upon the external world, where the idea of an externalized mind is nothing but a superimposed image upon a blank canvas. And when you scrub out that image by living from within yourself, you realize all there really is just that blank screen that gives life, that gives everything to what life is. It is that which permeates all. There is nothing beyond that infinite screen, as it were. That infinite screen is all that there is. But upon that infinite screen can be an infinite amount of images, an infinite amount of objects upon these images. But no matter what type of stimulation of imagery is upon that screen through this projection, the screen can never die. The screen can never deteriorate. The screen can never burn. It can never get soaked. It can never get blown away. It can never be ripped apart. None of those things can happen to the screen, because the screen does not exist within the externalization of mind, but it is responsible for the externalization of mind. So when you are understanding the mechanism of incarnation, living inside this body as a condensing of infinite intelligence, you now go inwards and you remember, this is who and what I am. I am that infinite intelligence. I am that consciousness. I am the Supreme. I am God. I am the Self. Because truly, I am that infinite screen. And all images have shone themselves upon this screen to make it feel like I'm some type of limited, finite, conditioned, separate-based self, which is nothing but an illusion, which is nothing by what the ancients have referred to as Maya. Not only is it illusionary, it is impermanent, it is temporary. And so therefore, as you watch the mind, it's like watching clouds pass by. The clouds don't just stay in your sky for the rest of eternity. No, they are constantly on the move. Well, that's the same thing with your thoughts. That's the same thing with the mind. It's constantly going through change because that's the nature of its construct. It cannot assimilate everything at once. And so therefore it goes through the process of change through you operating in this form of dimension to get an impression about how everything truly is one. The mind doesn't know how to do that. So the mind facilitates change. But when you move up into higher dimensions, you realize that the mind can therefore show you a multitude of pictures at the same time. It can show you a multitude of dimensions, a multitude of images at the same time. But they're still fluidic. They are not still, they are still in motion. They are animated. So as you go higher and higher up the ladder pertaining to the mind, through the astral, going all the way up to the causal, and looking at everything there, it is quite beautiful, it is quite comfortable, but it is still the mind. It is still fluidity involved. There is still animation involved. There is still movement, change involved. And that's all the mind knows. That's its construct. It knows nothing else. It doesn't know how to be still. It doesn't know how to be static. It doesn't know how to be unfathomable. Because that is who and what you truly are. You as infinite intelligence can never be fathomed. You can never be perceived. You can never be articulated. You can never be examined or analyzed. It's not possible because there's nothing to analyze. Because you are truly beyond the mind. The only reason why you are here in the body and the mind, because of your decision to do so, and to play along with identity. Identity is the cloak over your eyes that is telling you, well, I must be a limited, conditioned being, separate self-consciousness. And you will continue to believe that until you finally step inwards with yourself and realize that as I peel away the superimposed images of the mind to where just the infinite screen is bare, I will know God, because that is who and what I am. I am infinite intelligence. I am God. I am the Supreme. I am the Self. I am awareness. I am consciousness. Yes, that is the true nature to yourself. Therefore, understanding the mechanism of incarnation is simply showing you something that you have decided to dream about, something that you have decided to imagine, something that you have chosen to house yourself in, to have these experiences, just because you desire to have them. There is no ultimate purpose when it comes to the mind. It's to simply experience these things like a dream. Experiencing your imagination. Witnessing thoughts in an externalized stimulation. A stimulation simulation. Externalized is what you can best sum up the mind as. Therefore, everything that is in the mind is not the truth. Everything that is in the mind is not the true real. It's a perspective, yes, but it's nothing but external imagery. How you have unfolded your conscious awareness, taking form in the way of the mind through its construct. But when you go beyond that, you see who and what you truly are. And you know who and what you truly are because you are being who and what you truly are.